Test, test, test. All right, I think we're up. There we go. Hey everybody, it is the ASP.NET Community Stand-Up. It is a Wednesday, not a Tuesday. Sorry about that. Had a doctor's appointment yesterday. Now, interestingly enough, because it is a Wednesday and this is not the ordinary time that we do the ASP.NET Community Stand-Up, there's nobody here. I actually can show you on my texts and my IM over here. I tried to get Damien, I tried to get Glenn, tried to find anyone in the ASP.NET team who is not myself to talk to you all today. Turns out they're all shipping stuff. So this is an ASP.NET Community Stand-Up with just me. But I got a couple things I can potentially show you and just a couple of bits of familiarity that I might want to share. I'm going to share my screen. Q&A up. So certainly load that up with questions if you have any, and I will do the very best that I can to answer them. Right now, I'm just going to make sure that we've got this tweeted out and that people can get in the room and that they can get access to that Q&A. So it looks like we are up and going and people are starting to show up. All right, cool. So first thing, I'm going to share my screen and remind you of a couple of interesting things that have happened since build, in case you had not already heard. Let me go ahead and share my monitor there. There we go. So you probably heard, but just a reminder that code came out. Code is code.visualstudio.com. This is the free editor, right? So this is a text editor, a code editor, as it will, that works on Linux, Mac, and Windows. Now, I tell you this because you may have already heard about it, but because their getting started is really nice. You can go and download it. It'll automatically detect that you're on a Mac or Windows. You can see I'm on Windows right now. But if you scroll down to the bottom here where it says Get Started Now, let me click on Get Started. They're always updating this, but take a look at this. Setup. This is really good. This will actually show you how to set this up on Mac. Put it into your profile. So you can just type code at the command line from your profile. And we're hoping to get that into the Mac App Store as well soon. So right now you are going to have to unblock that on a Mac, so do be aware of that. And then you want to add a dot, and that's similar to Sublime. So for example, on my machine, I've made Sublime actually a batch file called s.bat. So I just type s space and then a dot, the dot being the current folder that you're in. So in this case, I can also type code and do that. Now with code, on Windows, we'll add that to your path because you actually are running an installer. But on Linux and Mac, we don't have that yet. So you'll want to either put that in your profile or do that. Now, down here, there's a list of additional tools. Now, we're always looking for ways to make this a little more easy, but it's worth pointing out that when you're doing modern web development, the reality is there are additional tools that you're going to want. And if you're not on Windows, you're going to want to get not just ASP.NET 5, but Node, because that's going to give you NPM, the Node Package Manager, and it's NPM that will let you pull in a lot of the command line commands, like, for example, Bower, which is another package manager that brings in JavaScript libraries. So between NPM, Bower, and NuGet, you're going to have quite a few package managers to think about. Second thing you're going to want to get is going to be Yeoman alongside the ASP.NET generator for Yeoman. And this generator is what you use at the command line to make new applications. So if you come out to the command line and type yo, say I don't have yo available. So what we'll do is we'll say npm install --g yo. I'm going to bring Yeoman down to my machine here. And then I'm going to bring in generator ASP.NET. So as soon as Yeoman comes down, I'll bring in the ASP.NET generators, and we're hoping that there'll be a whole community of these as well. There we go, and then we'll say generator ASP.NET. This is a machine that's never seen this before. And then we'll be able to type yo ASP.NET, and that will give us effectively file new from the command line, okay? So we're bringing down that one, and NPM is always a little pokey. I think it's doing some stuff client side here. Go, 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 go. All right, there we go. Yo ASP.NET. very first time you run Yeoman, it'll say, do you want to send anonymous statistics? And I want to help the people, so I'm going to say yes. Here I can say I want a new Nancy application, or I want a new ASP.NET application. We'll say web app, and we'll call it foo-foo, delete me. And then it makes that app for me. And then you see right here, I can use the following commands to get going. So I'll go into foo-foo, delete me, and I can type in dnvm list. See, I don't have dnvm, right? Do I have dnx? Nope, right? So I need to get on this machine ASP.NET 5. So here we are at github/ASP.NET/home. I'm just going to go and grab one of these lines. I can do it from PowerShell or from the command line. In this case, I'm at a DOS prompt, so we'll do it from here. It's going to launch PowerShell anyway, and go and grab that. See how it gets, there you go. See how it gets DNVM? It's also warning me that I used to have KRE on this machine, which was the K runtime, which has been changed. So it's worth pointing out that I should probably delete that because it's going to anger the gods. Okay, so now DNVM. Let's swap out and go to another DOS prompt. See if it's in my path now. DNVM list. It's warning me about that. Okay, should probably remove that, but I won't do that quite yet. And then we're going to go and get the runtime. So now we're actually downloading the core CLR. In this case, the CLR. I like the PowerShell command, the PowerShell progress bars. That makes me happy. Unpacking that. This is a pretty recent version that's getting you all that nice updated stuff. Now, so see there's an alias there, alias default dnvm list, and there it is, right? You'll do the same thing on your Mac, and then code will know about that. So then code will see ASP.NET 5 applications, and that is going to be pretty cool. So be sure to check out their stuff. Their setup is excellent. It explains exactly what you need to do, and it also shows you about how to set up debugging. Now, debugging right now, in this context, like if you're going to do this on Linux or on Mac, is going to require mono, and we're working on making that easier. But they'll actually explain to you how to get all that stuff working up here. It's pretty nice. One other thing that I wanted to point out that is cool, and by the way, for the folks that are just getting here, go ahead and click on Q&A and then add to Q&A there, and I'll get to those questions at the end here. I wanted to point out that when you hit ASP.NET/home or any of the GitHub repositories, you can see some interesting stuff. At the top here, you see it says ASP.NET Pushbot. This is kind of cool. This is a bot that is updating things. So let's look at the last commit of this pushbot. See? This pushbot is just there. It's basically a non-player character who updated the build versions of the DMVM build number. And you can see when those things got updated here. One thing I wanted to point out was this drop down where we've got dev. If you click on tags, you can see that specific versions are tagged. So for example, if I wanted to go to ASP.NET/MVC, I can go and see different branches and also different tags. So if I wanted to switch and see the differences between beta 3 and beta 4, or if I'm pinning something down to a specific version, I can go and switch to that tag, and I can see that that was a month ago. Then that happened. Okay. I also want to point out that you can click on commits, and you can actually see day by day actual commits. See, we can see that she updated 2535. See, this is now a test failure that was closed. We can see what she changed. If I click here, you can see exactly the modifications that were changed. So you can actually see the developers working on this stuff, including apparently this dog. That's Ryan. Updating these things as we go. It's all happening out in the open. And then you can even switch to the repository at that point in history and see what she was doing at that moment, at that time, and what she saw. And then, of course, diff it with what's currently on the master. I think that it's funny that this is just my opinion, but a lot of the technology journalists are talking about like what's Microsoft doing and what's the plan, and you know this was announced and that was announced. But if they would just look at the commits, they can actually see things getting set up for the future. They can see changes happening. It's just that I think it would be difficult for maybe the tech journalists to go in here and actually determine what our secret master plans are by looking at code commits. Although, of course, our secret master plan is to make everything work awesome everywhere. You can do the same thing for the core CLR. Click on commits, and you can see that even as close as 3 hours ago, they actually pulled in a pull request from a .NET bot. So just like the ASP.NET bot, there's also .NET bots. You can see here that Carol merged in a pull request from herself because she has got support, the ability to do that. So people are working on branches and then bringing in those changes. Okay, here we've got a question. There has not been a lot of discussion about the Signal R3 in the new ASP.NET 5 world. Are there any updates to that? The updates that I know about Signal R are that there just aren't enough people to work on it right now. And the #1 focus is working on ASP.NET proper. And then once we get that done, we'll start working on Signal R. Hang on, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. And actually, that's a good question that we'll have for Damien when Damien's on next week. And we'll look, because he actually ran the team, and now Damien runs all of ASP.NET. So he can speak to that. But right now, Signal R, it's fine. It's just consider it on pause because everyone's going full court press on trying to get ASP.NET itself rocking. One other thing I wanted to point out is docs.asp.net. Talked a little bit about this last week, but I want to point it out again because frankly, it's pretty fantastic. This is an experiment. Now, this isn't necessarily the way that we're going to do things, but we think it's pretty cool, so we want to show it to you. This is using a company called Read the Docs, and Read the Docs is a combination of an open source project that's built on another open source project. So there's Read the Docs built on Sphinx, and then there's the Read the Docs company that gives you hosted continuous integration documentation. So all these docs live on GitHub. Okay, so here's, for example, installing ASP.NET 5 on Windows, right? We can see when it was published. We can run through it, and we can see who wrote it. And if we want, we can edit this on GitHub. So this is the actual docs right here. Now, this is using a technology called restructured text. Restructured text is like Markdown for document authors. See how it says here, ref Steve Smith? We can actually look at the raw for that. Looks a lot like Markdown, but here is a reference to a person. You see? Here's an image being pulled in. So it's very similar to Markdown, but it's much, much more, and it has a whole community around it. So you can get involved and write docs. If we go back to the home page here, we can see a couple of these that are kind of in progress, right? This topic hasn't been written, but there's an issue that this project, this particular one, needs to get done. So Dan says, docs needs create a NuGet package with DNX. He opened that almost a month ago. And here's what needs to be talked about. It's going to be new content, and it's ready to go once someone has it. And then you can contribute by hitting edit on GitHub. There's the stub, you see, indicating that it is a stub. It's in progress, and you can get involved. So these are topics here with the little stub icon or the little wrench that we're going to write, or you're going to help write, in fact. So you've got fundamentals. So you're getting a real instant, you're getting basically a view of a book that's being written, okay? Now you can go and search for stuff within this. You've got search, you've got trees. It's almost like a kind of a live MSDN, but it's all community-based. So we're interested in your help, indeed, but also little stuff. If you want to just fix spelling errors, this is another great way. If you're not necessarily a coder and you want to get involved, help us with our docs, make them better, make them better. The other thing that's worth pointing out is that you can click here and download a PDF or an EPUB and bring that onto your e-reader, which is nice. David is saying, will these stand-ups continue after VS 2015 RTMs? If you want them to, that would be a really useful thing for you to tell us. I think people like them. We're planning on doing everything out in the open. There might not be something to talk about every single week, but if you guys and gals like it, yeah, we'll keep going as much as we can. Barring travel, like right now, things get, if there's a dentist appointment or someone can't make it, these things get canceled or moved to another day. But to the best of our ability, yeah, I don't see why we can't keep doing this every week. Gareth wants to know, does TypeScript come under this stand-up? TypeScript is not our group, but we can maybe have them visit. Right now, this is the ASP.NET community stand-up. It hasn't gotten big enough to be the .NET community stand-up, but that's an interesting idea. Another great question here. Any plans to make the docs multi-language? Yeah, definitely the goal would be to have this in multiple languages, multiple versions. You see where it says version here? You know, when ASP.NET 5 comes out, I expect to see versions here. So you should be able to switch between versions. And as I understand it, Read the Docs supports different languages. So it's totally within the scope here. Let's go and see if Read the Docs, but of course we have to write the docs first. That's the funny thing about the docs. How to write them first. So here's Read the Docs. This is the company here. Let's look at what their docs. So here's the docs for Read the Docs. And let's see if they have multi-language. Example, Read the Docs. Oh, you can't see that. I'm going to share my screen again, friends. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's the docs for Read the Docs. Here we go. See in the lower left corner here? It says languages. So here's the docs in Italian and the docs in Japanese. Looks like they're just practicing that. So that doesn't look like real docs on that one. So the idea of pivoting on the docs is possible. Okay, so it's supported. So I think you could expect to see multiple languages, multiple versions. That would be another, actually, a really interesting opportunity, Rodrigo, if you want to talk to Dan Roth on Twitter, or the next time I have Dan Roth on the Community Stand-Up, if you're interested in helping out with the docs and translating them, that's certainly appreciated. So that's a really cool idea. Cecil wants to know if Q background work item was added in 4.5.2 in order to address longer background. Yes, it was. In fact, is there any support for doing that under the new runtime? That's a good question. I will ask Damien that. So the question is, what is the best way to do background work items and things like that? Certainly there are web jobs on Azure, but the question would be from a threading perspective, what is the right way to do background processing? I don't know if Q background work item is available on Core CLR. And actually, that'd be a great thing to look at to see what the equivalent is. Here's a question on Stack Overflow. What is the equivalent? Q, what is Q? Here we go. So Q background work item, blah, blah, blah. Here's someone who's doing it with Hangfire. Hangfire is a great tool. Let's see what Damien says. Great question, Cecil. And let me see if I can get that figured out. What about self-hosting ASP.NET 5 apps in classic .NET applications? Well, so a classic .NET application is going to be .NET full desktop. Could you then self-host within that? Yeah, so you could have like an app that then fired up, listened on a port, and then potentially self-hosted ASP.NET. Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, if you can fire up and own the process, you could probably do something like that. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, I don't see why not. It'd be worth trying. I could certainly try to do a hello world and test that out for you. So that's a good question. Looks like Damien's in a meeting right now, so I'm not going to get that answer for you, Cecil, but tweet me or leave it in the comments on the YouTube, and then the answers I'll put in the YouTube here. So those are all the questions that we have so far. But sorry, that's just me. It's not quite as exciting. I like the dramatic zoom that Damien offers, and as well as the day-to-day stuff about what's going on. Because he's my man in Redmond, he's the guy who can tell me what's happening from day to day. Otherwise, I got to go and look through all the commits and talk to devs and stuff. But we'll continue to do these every week, try to bring some more devs on, not just Damien, and have some more visitors. Keep giving us feedback, keep tweeting us and letting us know what you want to hear. And remember that GitHub issues is the #1 place to report bugs. Cool. So I will do the dramatic zoom as best I can while I'm pushing back on my chair. Goodbye.